Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Schaefer, and I want to go over a few things about the things we would have done together in class on Monday, April 14th. So I'm in Angel right now in the Lessons tab and in our syllabus, and I want to show you just a few changes between now and the end of the semester. If you go to the last page of the syllabus, you'll see we're scheduled to do something called Writing to Learn with reader response on Monday. I'm going to change that just slightly. We're doing Writing to Learn, but with a different strategy, not with reader response. And I'll go over that in a minute. And then on the 21st, we'll be back together again in class. And we've already talked a great deal about metacognition, so I feel like you have a good handle on that in general. And so I'm going to substitute this for the last few weeks of class. So for the 14th, which we're doing online, you're going to do a Writing to Learn exercise, which I'll explain in a minute, and then you're going to apply that to chapter 10, 11, 12 to prepare for your exam next week. And then on the 21st, we'll be together in class, and we're going to begin preparations for the final exam in Ed Psych, and we'll finish that the following week on the 28th. So these last 2 weeks will be devoted to really helping you prepare yourselves and your study guide for that final exam. So I hope that sounds like a good plan. And then let's move on to what we're going to do today, which is another strategy for deep learning. And if you remember, we talked about the importance of moving away from just rote memorization of facts without a deeper understanding. So while it's important to have taken the time to memorize the important things you need to know, you don't want to end there. That's just the beginning. And so you want to move after that memorization piece into deeper learning and understanding. So we're doing a strategy called Writing to Learn today. And we're using a resource from Colorado State University, which is part of their Writing Across the Curriculum material that they have online. And so I also want to show you in Angel. If we go into the Lessons tab, you can find this in the Week 13 folder, Writing to Learn. You'll see two handouts here, the Writing to Learn overview, which is the material from this website, the strategy we're going to do, and then an explanation of what to do. That's here in this document. And then Writing to Learn homework, which we'll go over at the end. So if you take a minute, you want to pause this recording, you can read through the fuller definition of what it means to writing to learn, and then come back. And what I want to focus on is this sense that, often you're asked to write things in English Comp or other research writing where you're informing your audience or instructing people or persuading. And they want you to think about the fact that Writing to Learn is very different. It involves your use of language and thinking together in order to deepen your own understanding of what it is you're learning. So it's a unique way of knowing, and it becomes a tool for discovering, for shaping meaning, and for reaching understanding, right? So it's very different from writing a research paper. So in this next section, it talks about having to choose between giving students writing assignments that just become this mechanical effort to just get it done. Here, write this thing, and you never really stop to think. It doesn't facilitate or help you to become a stronger thinker. So in this last part of the course, we've been doing a lot of talking about critical thinking and developing your mind and your ability to think critically about things. And that's what Writing to Learn is about. So if you look at this last section particularly, one of the one of the goals of a college education, and especially of your general education courses, is to expose you to many, many different ways of thinking. And if you think about all the different disciplines that you are exposed to in your college education, things you might have never thought you'd take, science courses or business courses, they're designed to help you understand the different ways that people in different disciplines think. And as you get stronger at that, that strengthens your mind and your ability to think in more complex and varied ways. And that's a very important skill for you to have out in the work world. So if you read this next section, it's really talking about that, the way that we think differently in different disciplines, and that you learn these key concepts and you also understand material more fully while also practicing some features of discourse, which means the way in which different disciplines think and converse and problem solve, right? So this act of writing to learn can have very positive impacts on you and your thinking, helping you to become stronger thinkers and actually better learners. So if we just look quickly at some examples of different writing to learn activities on this site, and again, this is all in that handout available to you in Angel, you can link to all these different kinds of writing to learn activities. There's many, many ways you can use writing to help you understand different concepts, different courses that you're taking. We're going to focus on just one, the pre-test warm-up, because you have an exam coming up for Ed Psych next week on chapters 10, 11, and 12, and I thought this would be a good way to help you prepare for that exam while at the same time practicing one of these writing to learn activities. So we'll go to that to get a sense of what this strategy is. So take a minute to read over this. You can pause the recording and then come back. So you'll see that this strategy asks you to generate problems for an upcoming test. Now, this is different from generating questions. Think about the difference, right? So you could have very factual questions. What is motivation, right? That's very different from generating a problem, which is more like a real scenario. So in your tutoring, you've seen students come and have various different levels of their paying attention and staying engaged, right? So you could say, you could create a scenario that says, you know, in your tutoring session, John and Sarah are having a hard time staying on task. And you see that they're very easily distracted and they're fooling around and talking. And so based on the theories of motivation that you've been reading about in chapter 10, what are some strategies that teacher could do to get the students back on track? So can you see the difference? That's a very different thing than just generating questions and answers. You want to generate a problem. And the reason for that is because it forces you in the creation of the problem, but also in the solving of the problem, to go more deeply, to make connections between ideas, to think in a more sophisticated way, in a more critical way. So I'm thinking this is pretty straightforward, but get in touch with me if you have any questions. I'll show you an example here. If you print out the Writing to Learn homework sheet, you'll see that what I've done, what I'm asking you to do is to use the strategy 3 times, one in chapter 10, once in chapter 11, and once in chapter 12 to help you prepare. So I have done chapter 10 for you already, and so you have another example, and all you need to do is solve this problem. But in chapters 11 and 12, you'll need to create a problem and then also solve it. So let's take a look at the one from chapter 10, which is on motivation. So take a minute to read the problem, and then notice what you're asked to do is in bold. So you're going to use at least 2 levels of Maslow's hierarchy, explain how the students' needs affect their motivation to be on task in Jim's lesson. And for one of Jim's groups, you're going to suggest a motivational strategy that would address the problem and explain why Maslow would expect it to work. So notice how you set the problem. Your problem is asking for a solution, but also uses the content from that chapter. So you're going to solve this and answer those parts, and then you're going to create a problem for one of the important concepts in chapter 11 and then again in 12, and then you'll solve those. So you make this work to your advantage. Do it so that it helps you to study perhaps those concepts that you're struggling with, right? So it forces you to go and really focus on those more deeply. So I hope that this is a useful strategy for you. I think it's a very worthwhile strategy. And then you can either send me an email or bring these to class on the 21st when I see you again. And if you have any questions, send me an email. I'll be happy to help you. So I hope